Well, hi, I'm Noah Bradley with Handmade House TV, and today we're not going to talk about houses. We're going to talk about that little house out back. Stay tuned. Well, all right, today we're going to talk about privies or outhouses. I've heard the term used interchangeably back and forth, but it's that little building out back of old houses, little log cabins, where our ancestors would frequent. Rather than having indoor plumbing, they would have an outdoor privy where to go do their business when the time came to do that. Outhouses have been part of our history for centuries here in America. When you had to do your business, when you had to go, you went to the outhouse. There's a lot of stories behind that, and in my line of work, where I'm frequently building little retreat log cabins up in the woods, folks want to build them either out of necessity because they can't get all of the amenities there at the cabin, or they want to have at least a little bit of the charm of the character of having a little outhouse out back. So I've probably built more outhouses than most builders have. And there are some merits and some virtues to it. And by the way, I invite you to leave comments here below in this video whether or not you have used an outhouse or not. But I have myself at periods where I lived in some more of the more remote areas of this eastern half of the country. But there are some virtues to it. One of those is that it's extremely cost effective. The cost of installing an entire drain field system, the cost of paying for every flush of the water that goes there, there is an environmental impact, and there's an impact to our wallets. Frequently, a septic drain field will cost at least $5,000, if not $10,000 today, and it's not uncommon for an engineered system to run as much as $30,000. And then there is the maintenance issue, where every 5 years the system needs to be pumped out and emptied, plus all of the water that's continually flowing into them. And there's the environmental impact of a system as well. So the cost of getting rid of our human waste is high. Of course, there is today the composting toilets, but they're not as easy as the flush system, and they still require us doing our business inside of the home. As much as we today might be a little bit abhorred the fact of our ancestors all doing their business in a building outside, they would be equally abhorred with us today doing our business inside the house. What are you thinking doing it in there? So, but there are cases where building an outhouse or a privy really makes sense. First of all, it does cost next to nothing to build one. It is still legal in most places under the proper circumstances. Clearly, if you live in a subdivision, you're not going to be allowed to put one up. But if your local health department deems it a valued system, that it makes sense that they will allow you to do it. Typically there is a permit process and an inspection process, but it's basically just digging a hole and then building a little structure over top of it. The chances of ever filling it up is almost zero, but if that's whatever happened to you, the building can actually be relocated to over top of a different hole, and our ancestors would typically build a little tree, plant a fruit tree or something over top of that hole, and the rich soil associated with that would help that tree become very fruitful as the years came on. One thought today with regard to the construction of a privy or an outhouse is that frequently when we acquire a piece of land and we build a home, it's at least a year from the time through the process before we have indoor plumbing to use, and it's standard business practice to bring in a porta-john basically for us to use during that process. If you would choose, rather than going that route of paying the $60 to $100 a month, in other words, well over $1,000 to have one of these dropped off on your property, Instead, you can choose to build an outhouse for the crew to use during the process. And then when it's all done, you actually have a cute little outbuilding that you can use. I've found that the cost of building an outhouse is basically nothing more than the labor involved in putting it together. They take almost no material, frequently enough scrap material or leftover from other projects can put together a really cute little treasure to have. The only downside to using a privy, in my opinion, other than perhaps the cold weather during the winter time, you certainly want to get the job done when it's freezing outside. Is during the warmer months, the wildlife that one might encounter inside of an outhouse or a privy. There are, of course, the possibility of snakes, but I have found that the creepiest thing is often a spider. That it's not uncommon to find one dangling inside an outhouse, and that's just enough to give generally people creeps enough that they'll hop in the car and drive to a local restaurant. And then there's one other side benefit to building an outhouse or a privy on your property. I knew a young man who built one of these as a principle that he wanted to low impact on his land and to be environmentally friendly by building one of these. And so he built a privy outside of his house, and he found that the state came in a couple of years later and saw that he was using an outhouse and offered him a grant that would pay entirely for the addition of a bathroom and septic system on his property. So if you're concerned about cost when building your house, that might be a path to getting a free bathroom. Okay, you guys take care. Thank you for joining me today on All About Outhouses and Privies. Don't forget to leave us a comment on the bottom if you've ever used an outhouse yourself, or if you would consider building one today. I'd like to thank 5 new members of the Handmade House Guild. They are Stephen Foster, Andrew Patterson, Conrad Showalter, Dan Chain, and Bobby Stark. Guys, thank you so much for joining the Handmade House Guild and for all of your comments about the courses that are within that, plus all the other benefits, including free blueprints, you name it. Your support, your words of encouragement, plus the membership fee and joining us is a bargain, but it also enables me to continue producing more courses and more videos here on YouTube. Thank you much, guys. Y'all got to take care, and if you're not a member of the Handmade House Guild, consider joining us. Makes a great Christmas present. Guys, take care. Bye now.